I've sold companies for millions of dollars. I had an 88% profit margin. And this was a side business. This is not something I did full time, but I also had a full-time engineering career in oil and gas. I think the phone I was using at the time was like a iPhone 7 or Android. I would just use that because 2017 was when I really started to do the videos, when I started to kick off this brand.
This is the Content Capitalists Podcast. We talk to business owners who've used video to grow their businesses to $1 million a year or more. How they did it, what worked, what didn't. Welcome to the Content Capitalists with your host, Ken Okazaki.
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Content Capitalist Podcast. Today I have a very special guest with me. His name is Tony Whatley. And we met probably about a year and a half ago inside of another platform. I think it was Clubhouse. Is that where we first engaged with each other? That's right.
Yeah.
And through Clubhouse, I actually started following him on other platforms and finding out what he's doing. And, you know, one thing that I found was very interesting is we both make a lot of video. But the thing is, there's something else which is interesting is that we both have Japanese roots of some sort. And so immediately I was like, I got to connect with this guy. And, you know, what he's got to share is very, very, very important because among a sea of, you know, fake influencers or, you know, maybe not fake, but entrepreneurs, I found somebody who actually knows what the heck he's talking about and has an amazing history around business. Tony, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on with me.
Hey, Ken, man, it's good to connect again and always enjoy the content that you put out. And I can't wait to share some value with your audience today.
Thank you so much. Well, Tony, look, why don't we just start with you giving us kind of the lay of the land. What is your business today? And I see you got some branding here. And if you're listening to the audio, we're actually looking at Tony in this web call. And he's got a really nice looking studio and he's got this logo, 365 Driven. Tell us about that. What are you doing around that?
So 365 Driven is an entrepreneurship community. It's also the brand of my podcast, the same title. I launched that in 2017 as I'm a community builder. So going back to history, I've built a lot of different communities, mostly in the automotive performance arenas. And I said, you know what? I want to build a community of entrepreneurs because that's the legacy thing that I'm building for the rest of my life. And I've always been fascinated with businesses. I've been a business owner since 2001, so over 20 years now. And I just saw a lot of stuff that was going on that was being taught by a lot of these gurus, like you talked about, the fake influencers. And I just said, you know, there's people that over sensationalize the grind and the hustle, and you got to pay your dues and all this crazy nonsense. And I've always been very good at earning money without really, I wouldn't say working hard because you do have to work hard, but I just think people overthink things and they glamorize the grind too much.
But with your logo and that name 365 Driven, at first impression I thought you're all about the grind and the hustle because you're 365. Tell me, what's the significance of that name and what does it really mean to you?
365 Driven. First of all, it was an available domain name. Let's go with the branding. It's easy to remember. It's something that's unique. It's short. There's minimal syllables. I mean, there's a lot of branding baked into that, but it's also a mantra. So whenever I build brands, I think about what is something that somebody would wear on their shirt, perhaps. Or, you know, if I were to walk up to somebody that was a perfect stranger in the sidewalk in a public setting, and I said, hey, are you 365 Driven? They would probably just take a few seconds to think about that and go, yeah, I am. You know, that's me. And so when you think about brands, especially when you're building a community, you always want to make sure that you're building a mantra that somebody could easily recognize and go, okay, yeah, I can vibe with that, right? So to me, it's a personal development thing. It's more about improving or evolving in a manner that every single day matters. And you know, I had a near-death experience in 2015 racing cars. And I said, man, I just want to make sure that I focus and I'm grateful for everything I do on every single day and improving, whether that's physical, relationships, financials, all these different aspects of our lives that make us fulfilled. And that's what the brand comes from.
Love it. Thanks for explaining. Now, what I'm trying to do here with this podcast is I want to show real life examples of people who are actually doing well in their business. And I think that there's a lot of bad advice going around, some of it's, I think, can work, but when it comes from someone who you don't know really, like, did they make their money teaching it or did they make their money actually doing the thing they're teaching, right? So why don't you give Give us a little bit of background on the businesses you started, and if you're comfortable with it, share any numbers around like what valuations these were at and how much you're earning in them and things like that.
Yeah, so the two biggest automotive communities I built, one was called LS1Tech.com. That's the one we started in 2001. And it grew to become the largest General Motors, basically online community that exists. It's still to this day, the private equity company that bought it in 2007, they still run it today, and it's still the biggest General Motors performance community. That one had about 300,000 registered members, and we had about 150 different advertising accounts that we were pushing through that website. So we had a lot of traffic, about 100,000 unique visitors per day. And I took that same business model after about 3 years into it. We're probably profiting close to 400,000 a year, to kind of give you guys some numbers. And this was a side business. This is not something I did full time. It was something that I created processes, systems, the brand. I led the community, built the 75 people staff, things like that. But I also had a full-time engineering career in oil and gas. So I was having to build these things with systems and processes and people that I didn't have to always be present. And so that's why I think about, like, you can make a lot of money without having to work crazy amount of hours doing stupid things by just having the right people, places, and processes. And, so I took that same business model and also said, okay, I have all these contacts with all of these manufacturers and performance shops and racing tracks and Cadillac and Chevrolet. And I said, what if I just build another community for trucks? Because we started to see that there was like this truck community thing emerging, that even within ours, like these guys that were buying pickup trucks and wanting to modify them to go faster and race them said, well, I could spin that off. We could just go build a completely different website for those truck guys and maybe even get some Ford and Dodge guys to come join and have some little camaraderie, right? And so we started performancetrucks.net with the same business model, the same culture, the same management, a lot of the overlapping teams. Already had the advertising account, so they were all willing to jump in and had sponsors day one. That one grew to almost the same size, about 280,000 registered members at that time. And so I was able to really just duplicate the revenue just by creating a separate branch that was somewhat related to the same business model.
Got it. And when you got this idea in the first place to build this community, was there a model that you saw somebody else doing thinking I could do that or do better? Or did you invent that idea out of thin air?
No, absolutely. I looked at something that, here's a funny story about that, because we were actually members. There was about 4 of us that were big time contributing members to an existing website. And I'll give them a shout out. It was called LS1.com. And we were the ones that were creating the content, creating the how-to articles, the videos, how to make your car go faster, how to be a better driver, like how to make it look better, just always creating content. But the person that owned the website wasn't paying his bills for a server host. And so sometimes we just log in, Ken, and the website would just be gone. Like it just wouldn't exist. You get the error 404, right? And I said, this is not cool. And so after that happened 2 or 3 times, we approached him. We said, hey, why don't you just pay your bills? Like, you got advertisers. We know you're making money. Like, just pay your bills. That way, like, quit losing our information, because he wasn't doing any backups. He wasn't being a good steward for the information we were creating for free. And instead of taking advice from some of his best clients, his best supporters, he had an attitude about that. And he said, hey, if you think you could do a better job, go start your own.
Putting a red flag in front of a bull there, right?
Dude, yeah, my side hustle at the time, I was teaching myself HTML, I was coding, I was doing Photoshop, I was photographer. So I had all the tools and the skills to build websites. And I had no plan on doing that until he put that seed in my head. And I'm very competitive at the same time. So you just don't tell the wrong people to go do that. Because I said, okay, I'll go do that.
Yeah. And how long did it take to spin that up, the first version?
So the key to having that is I also recruited a lot of the good people that were contributors on that other website. And I said, hey, this guy obviously doesn't care about us. So let's just go create our own thing and we'll just go create content there. I promise I'll keep the servers upgraded. I promise we'll update the software. We'll have securities in place. We'll do backups. We'll do everything right, like a business, right? Because even though it was a side thing, I said, I'm going to take it serious. And like my book, Side Hustle Millionaire, okay? The title is because I earned millions of dollars from side businesses. And
yeah.
The problem is that most people hear side hustle or they think side business and they think hobby. They think it's a hobby and I'll just half-ass it and I'll get half-ass results. Or there's these other side hustle books and gurus out there and they say like, if you work really hard, Ken, you can make an extra $300 a month. And I'm thinking to myself,
I think there's a place for that, though. I think there are some people who
oh,
can't.
Man. No,
Well, think about this. Somebody who's working at McDonald's, right? And they have never even, like, it has never crossed their mind that they can make more money. So an extra 300 might be where they dip their toes and they realize, if I can make 300, maybe I can make 1,000. And then if I can make 1,000, maybe I can make 10,000. And their vision has to grow. So maybe there's a place for that. I don't think there's a true bred entrepreneur. Man. I don't think that's for them. But there are people who just have an employee mentality, right?
True. I definitely agree with that. I think that everybody's at different levels and you can get them at the beginning. But the thing is that even if you're a beginner at this, the steps and the process is to build a successful company from zero revenue, or let's talk about negative revenue, like you're investing a little money sometimes. From going negative to positive cash flow, it's the same steps. But the problem is that when these experts and these side hustle coaches, they set their goals really low. Like, hey man, let's just try to make you $1,000 a month. And then they build the business model around that idea. But the problem with that is that there's a lot of businesses out there that you can create to make an extra $1,000 a month. But those same businesses may not have the same potential to scale to get to the $10,000 a month mark, right?
So we're talking about putting the right framework and foundation in place. So you have the potential to scale if you choose to in the future, right?
Correct.
Okay, I get where you're coming from.
Assess where your financial and your time goals are in your life and go, hey, I'd like to earn this much per month and then work this many hours, because $1,000 a month, I could be doing hand-built widgets and arts and crafts on the kitchen table after work. And that's very time consuming and it doesn't really scale very well, but I can make $1,000 a month doing that. Mm-hmm. But if I wanted to make $10,000 a month doing that, like there's limitations in my own time. I would have to have employees doing that for me. So it's not the same as building something that, especially digital, that can scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I totally see where you're coming from with that. There's, I think that with the people have a hard time if they come from an employee, mentality, that what they're doing needs to be scalable. Otherwise they'll be stuck there literally for the rest of their life, and snapping out of that's tough. My mentor, when I was your guest on your podcast, I told you a bit about how I was doing large scale events, right? My mentor at the time, he was doing events all over the world. His name is Richard Tan, and he was also my business partner in this. And he said something really interesting. He says, when I started doing events, I would put it up for, 50 people or 100 people, small events. And then he realized that the amount of work, like if you're the organizer of the event, 50 people or 500 people or 5,000 people is about the same amount of time and effort required for you. It just takes higher organizational skills. And then he just decided to go for the biggest possible events in the world. And he got the US president to show up at his events so that's the scale he went to. So yeah, 100% with you on that, create the framework to scale, right?
Yeah. And it's also, let's go back into like structure of these kind of business ideas, because a lot of times people really focus on understanding that, hey, we have to sell X amount of units. So if it's a product or service, we need to sell X amount of units. Each of those units have to have some level of profit margin. Hopefully it's a high profit margin. That's why I like digital space and online businesses, because especially when you're doing things like I was doing, I was making advertising revenue based on a platform that I had created. I had an 88% profit margin. That's huge.
Yeah.
A lot of these companies that we know, the name brands and everything we think about operating, they're looking at 30 to 40% max profit margin.
That's considered good for large corporations.
Exactly. That's good. 15% is the norm. Like 15 to 20% is like for mom and pop shops and retail locations, and restaurants is even lower. It's usually like 8 to 10%, right? So understand that sales and salesmanship and marketing is the same, whatever your business is. Like you're going to have those same skills, but the distinction is that you can sell little widgets for $5 each and make, $1 profit. And you have to sell a whole lot of those things to make the same amount of money as like something selling expensive. So I always think about, if you're going to sell something, try to find something very expensive to sell, because the margins on those is usually the same amount of, 15, 20% profit margin, but it's a bigger price point. So you get a bigger reward for each transaction.
Absolutely. Now, I think one of the other things that are almost infinitely scalable that we both love is content creation, right? Like right now we're creating this podcast. It's going to go out to YouTube. It's going to go out to the podcast platforms. It's going to get repurposed into TikToks and Instagram Reels. Like there is a huge amount of platforms that can be reformatted for. And at what point did you start realizing, hey, if I put my face in front of a camera and put it on the internet, then this is good for business? Like, when did that start for you?
I started watching, some of the early influencers in the business space, like Gary Vee, like, we talked about him before, and, people doing different content variations early on in social media. And we start to see that Facebook started to favor live videos for one time. Remember, like someone would go live and everybody's like, oh, who's that? And you had to watch it because like nobody was doing it at the time. Right. And so,
or even knew that the feature existed. It was a new feature. So everybody had to check it out.
Oh, even then when it was rolling out a few years back, only certain people had it. Remember that? Yeah. Like they kind of weeded it in really
you were
slowly.
Special if you had it.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't easy for me, Ken. I understood the importance of it. I know that there's a lot of business owners that understand the importance of it and they should be doing it. And you and I tell them, and people in my community, I tell them you should be doing videos or content creation because it's not going away. It's only going to become more dominant as we go forward in technology. So I knew this stuff for years, but I didn't like to do it. I had insecurities about being on camera. I didn't like the way I sounded. I didn't like my voice. We all have that kind of hang up about ourselves. And I realized the importance of it. I said, hey, I have a mission to make. I'm trying to impact millions of people by giving them some good business advice and confidence. I need to be able to put myself out there. I got to lead by example. So I had stage fright. I didn't like standing on stages and stuff like that. Now I'm like a paid speaker to go do crazy stuff like that. So, dude, it was a very uncomfortable way. And this was probably 2015, 2016. It's like I had to go do it. I had to go. So I joined a Toastmasters and I showed up every Monday night and I raised my hand and I participated and I just did videos every single day for 365 days. That's kind of also a throwback to the title. It's like, I'm just going to do a social media video every single day and improve and learn the public speaking skills that I was learning and just use those on the videos instead of on stages. And so that's what I did. And it kind of worked out because I sucked. Like everybody sucks at the beginning. And that's the problem, is because most people know that they suck or they think that they're going to be better than they are. And then they realize that they do suck and they're like, oh man, this isn't for me. And repetitions, if you do it enough, it gets easier. You become more comfortable. You start to pick up better skills. You hire a public speaking coach if necessary. You join a Toastmasters. You do this content creation. You learn copywriting. We're actually speaking in copy and stories. And the best part about this, Ken, is that I knew that I sucked and I would take 10 takes. I would do these videos in my truck after work when I still had like a tie on because I was consulting. And I would record myself 10 different videos. And I was like, okay, this is the best one. Usually like the 6th or 7th one was like the best one. And I would just post it. I'd just always post one. And the thing is that people were watching this because they were curious because it's completely out of my norm. But over the period of just weeks, I started to improve and people started noticing that kind of stuff. Like, man, you're getting better. And I was like, oh, thanks, man. I feel like I'm getting a little more comfortable with this. And a couple months in, like, they're like, dude, like, so proud of you. Like, they're being inspired by you going on this journey of improving, like, in real time that I didn't count on. I was doing it because I just knew it was important. But I started to inspire and empower other people that believe that they could do it for themselves. And I said, well, let's push the record button. Let's do this. Yeah. Let's do this together. Let's go. Let's challenge each other.
Yeah, I get it. Now, I think that the question I get way more than anything else, and you know how influencers always say this, people always ask me, this is something people literally always ask me, is what camera and gear should I get? Now, I know that you probably started with whatever you had around you. Could you give some people an idea of what you started with when you recorded your first video and decided to put it out online? Or I think you said for you it was live, right? That's how you got started. What was your setup like?
I think the phone I was using at the time was like a iPhone 7 or Android. I had one for work, like I had an iPhone and an Android phone. And I think maybe the Android at the time was the better video camera of the two. And I would just use that. So it's just, I would literally just use the little windshield holder of my phone and just do that with the phone. And that's all I needed. And the thing is, like, this was also, you think for context, okay? Because 2017 was when I really started to do the videos, when I started to kick off this brand. And at that time, we'd already discovered, and you and I both know in this industry, that highly overproduced movie cinematic stuff was like the trend in 2014 and 15. But by 2017 coming around, it was kind of like, hey, people just want organic, shoot it raw out of your phone and upload it. Like, nobody wants the fancy stuff with the subtitles and crazy stuff. So, we started to realize that you just keep it simple, just keep it simple.
I think there is what I call the uncanny valley. And there is a place, and I think there always is, for highly produced cinematic style videos. But there are people who know how to do it. They've had some training. They've had tons of experience in front of a camera, and they know how to get the lights right. They got the professional camera, the audio. And then on the other side, you've got people who are just using their phones and shooting, right? And that's extremely personal. It's unpretentious. And then in the middle, you have people who are trying. Like there's a sheep behind them and it's wrinkled, right? They got a fancy mic, but it's pointed the wrong direction. I've seen that, so it's hilarious, right? They got lights, but they're too sharp. Their camera's out of focus. And then that's what I call the uncanny valley, where people look at it, and people who haven't had experience in or spent much time watching video, they're gonna look at it and they're gonna say, I get he's trying to do something, but he's not nailing it. I don't know why, but it feels uncanny. It feels uncomfortable just watching it, and it's embarrassing even. So exactly what you said there. Like if you've had professional training, go for it. Like your studio is beautiful. You've probably spent a lot of time researching. You got a Rodecaster Pro, which I just kind of figured. I saw that on my alert. You got lights, and your sound is beautiful, and you got a great camera too, and you use your phone. But in between, it's like go all in and get a professional setup, or use your phone. There's not really like the in between part. Just kind of is kind of weird, isn't it?
I think you're safer with the phone, man. Everybody has that. Start with the phone, because a lot of times people will invest in all the fancy gear, but they don't invest in the person with the microphone or the person that's looking in the camera. So, the analogy you and I used on our show was like guys racing cars. They'll throw a lot of money at horsepower and try to buy the most expensive car they can afford, thinking that they're going to win all these races at the racetrack, but they don't invest in the driver. Just like you have to invest in the speaker and the presence and the storytelling and the copywriting and just learning how to do the call to actions. Like, these are skills that most people just don't even know exist. Like I see a lot of times I go to these different events I speak at, and people will just get up on the stage and they just bomb. They're just not very good at it, but they're very knowledgeable. They're very successful. They may be a multi-millionaire or a billionaire even sometimes, but they think that their success earns them the right to get on a stage. But what they fail to realize is that anytime we're on a camera or a microphone or a stage, we still have to be entertaining. We still have to be able to use our voice to carry the message and get it there the right way, and use humor and, punchlines and just different things that we use tactically to get the message across. Because no matter how good your message is, if you don't know how to deliver it, nobody's going to listen to it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. The message is so important. Now, I want to go back to a bit of your timeline. You started going live every single day and making video. And at what point do you feel like you kind of, that imposter, you said that you didn't like the way you looked, and like it wasn't easy for you. Do you remember, was there a turning point or at a certain period of time where it started becoming easy?
I would say about a month in. It's not that long. You would think it would take you a year to get comfortable with it. But I've learned this by many times in our group. We'll do these video challenges. We'll do a 30-day video challenge, and everybody that wants to participate, we'll just go, hey, the goal is to do at least 30 videos. I don't make them go like every day, but by the end of this month, you need to have 30 videos done. So if you miss a day, I don't want you to make an excuse and go, well, I guess I'll do it next month, because a lot of people like to do that, right? I learned that a few times. Like if we said, hey, it's video every day, somebody would miss a day on day 4 and go, well, I'm out for the month. I guess I can't compete and do this. Like, dude, that's a lame excuse. So I changed it, like it's 30 videos in 30 days, but it could be, you can miss a day, but you got to do 2 the next day, catch up. Right. And so
the smart ones will do, 10 on day 1, 10 on day 2, and 10 on day 3.
There you go. But the whole idea for those is these are people that are not comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
And the resounding thing, when we go back and we survey the people that have done this, 1 week, only 7 days, they have a completely different outlook on doing videos. They go, man, this is not so bad. This is not scary at all. And they're surprised by that. And I was like, I know it's weird, because it's like this thing that we think that's this big thing that's like so like scary, and like I got to be prepared, and nobody's going to like what I'm doing. Like you have all these excuses and objections for yourself. But then you actually do the stuff, and a week in, you're like, dude, this isn't so bad. Like, and when people ask, like one of the things like they ask, they go, hey, Ken, where do you guys get the ideas for your videos? Like, how do you come up with your ideas and your content? And My answer to that is that if you don't have ideas, you're not feeding your brain with new information on a daily basis. So if you're able to listen to podcasts or read a book or just do something or even watch YouTube, just if you're learning something new every single day, I guarantee you will always have new thoughts and new realizations. Therefore, you will have new content.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I see behind you, I can't tell if those are books or something. You have a bunch of books behind you, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. And you can see behind me here too. It's just, I love reading, and actually nowadays it's more like listening to the books, but I'll buy the book anyway because there's something about having it on the shelf. Like I'll scan through the titles when I'm looking for inspiration, and I'll know exactly what's in that book because I heard the whole thing. I don't walk around with books in my hand so often anymore, but you're spot on there with ideas, sources. Now you have you've got these communities, and you're creating the videos regularly now. And was there a point where it started to like make business sense, where you're seeing a return on that effort that you're putting in? Because if you're just using your phone, it's probably not too much of a monetary investment, but it is time and effort, right? When did that start happening for you?
I think when you're using social media platforms, you also have to understand the algorithm, because a lot of times people just get kind of turned off because they'll do a couple videos and they realize that not many people are watching it, not many people are liking it or commenting it. So they kind of feel like defeated, and they're like, hey, nobody's watching my videos anyways. I'm just wasting my time. But, they'll say like, oh, I've got 1,000 friends on my Facebook page, but only like 3 people like my video. Like, I must suck at this. It's not for me. Like all this negative self-talk, right? That's the thing you have to go through. And I'm going to give you guys like the real thought process that we all have to go through. Okay. Whenever you're doing something new in your life, whether you're going on a weight loss journey or starting a business, or, hey, I'm going to write this book, or whenever you announce something to your audience or your family or your followers or whatever you're talking about, they're initially going to give you the golf clap and go, yeah, they're going to support you. And so we react to that by going, wow, this is going to be easier than I thought. Like I had all these people supporting me. Look at these. Like they're excited for me too. Like this is going to be awesome. Like I thought these people were just going to ignore me. And so you have that little bit of a buzz, and that lasts about 4 days, 4 or 5 days. Like you'll make a video every day. And the first 1 or 2 people are like, yeah, keep going, man. Like this is awesome. Like congrats. And you're like, dude, I got this momentum. This is going to be great. And 4 days later, like nobody gives a crap. They're not even watching it. They aren't clicking like or dislike. They're not even engaging in it. So you start to think like, wow, must be me. Like, am I bad as a story? Am I offending people? Like all the negative stuff, right? So that's where most people just kind of quit. They just kind of quit. But here's the problem with that. When you know that 80% of the people that do that are quitting, it becomes a tactical advantage just to understand that you can outlast them. So I always tell people, if you're not willing to go at least 1 year, and that sounds like a long time, but it goes very fast. If you're not willing to go hard at anything for at least 1 year, don't even start. You got to make that commitment before you start. Hey, I'm going to do videos, or I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to start this business. I'm going to give it a full year. I'm going to go all in for 1 year, regardless of what the outcome or the way it feels in the middle, because that's what we call the no man's land. And this happens whether you're building an audience or influence or a business. You're going to start off with that heavy support and momentum. You're going to feel good about it, and then it goes stale. And you have to show up every single day. You got to create that content. And you're like, man, nobody's watching this, but I'm going to keep going. And 9 months in, people start to come back around and go, hey man, that video was really good. Like, hey, thanks for sharing that. 12 months in, people are like, hey, Ken, come check out Tony's video. Like, this is a pretty cool video, man. I thought you would enjoy this too. They're kind of talking about it with their friends, and they're sharing it. And then 18 months in, so like we're taking bigger steps now. You notice that, right? 18 months in, people are starting to tag you and stuff. They're like, hey, like go watch this video, and you're getting hashtags that people are just using that you've never even seen before. And 2 years in, so it's just a long timeline. 2 years in, you wake up in your notifications boxes, you got like 50 people like posting and sharing your content that you've never met, never seen before. But that doesn't come until at least 12 months in. Like if you don't consistently show up and create the content or do what you said you did, because here's the thing is like everybody thinks you're going to quit because there's so many people that do it. They just go hard for 2 months and then they quit. So what they do is they watch you in silence. Like even your friends, like people that know you, they're going to watch you in silence, and they're going to say, okay, well, we'll see how long this goes. Let's see if Tony's got it, right? 9 months in, like I said, that's when they start to acknowledge, like, okay, he's actually pretty serious about this. Like, this is pretty committed. I'll throw him some love now. Like, he's getting there way ahead of where everybody else is doing it. 12 months in, they know you're serious about it. Then they start to show support. You finally earn their trust. And this goes for podcast episodes, videos, YouTube, whatever you want to do. Like, you got to be committed at least 12 months. That's 365 again, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this thing that I noticed that happens. And my brother, I've got my younger brother, he's a professional bodybuilder and he's got a YouTube channel around that. Doing very, very well for himself. And he's got his own line of merch. But he was explaining to me how when he started, right, the first initial supporters were friends and family, people who knew him. And what happened was friends and family are not, like, if you're not into bodybuilding, then you're only supporting him because he's friends and family. But it gets boring, right, if you're not a bodybuilder. So he says there's this gap, and it's like the step of faith where they will all drop off, period. They will. And all your initial followers, they're going to love you, they're going to support you, just like you said, for a couple of weeks. And then there's going to be crickets. And you have to trust that your true audience, your true believer audience is out there and they will find you. Because if you don't have that faith that that person exists, then you have no reason to go on. And then there's this dry spell where it's not about, it's kind of like sales, right? It's every no is one step closer to a yes. And every like video you put out that's a failure, you have to think like, okay, if my 10th video is going to hit, then I got to make 10 videos so that 10th one will hit. And as he was explaining that to me, he goes, you have no idea how, in the beginning, I was just like, I felt like I was driving a car blindfolded. I did not know where I was going, but I just had my foot on the pedal and I just kept moving. And now he's got, he's making, multiple 7 figures just from his YouTube channel. Very, very well. But his audience is like, nobody else in our family is a bodybuilder. So we check in because we love him, but it's like, I don't binge watch his stuff. I don't have the alerts on, and he doesn't need us. So I think that when people realize their friends and family are not their ideal customers, and they just need to realize that there will be a drop and we tell them ahead of time, then I think that's doing them a huge service. Just expect this dip, this valley of the shadow of death, if you will, before you reap the rewards.
Yeah, it's no man's land. That's like I said, no man's land. And the thing funny about that is it's the people that you think will support you the most, like you said, friends and family, the people you currently are in your network, they're not going to be the ones that support you the most. It's the people that you haven't even met yet that will become your biggest supporters. And that's kind of exciting. You get excited about uncertainty, but you have to understand that that's to come. And
you're probably the outlier within your friends and family. Like always. For you, it was trucks, right? Like you were more into trucks than anybody else in your friends and family. But then there's also other people like you. That's your community. And that's the reason why your friends and family are not going to continue being your primary audience for very long. Dude, could you tell me about any time where when it comes, you created some content and you messed up and you're just like, I would not do that again. I wish I didn't do that. Was there anything like that ever happened to you?
Other than technical stuff like filming, being a rookie and like putting the backlighting behind you and you're too dark or something like that. But I'll say that the content that tends to go viral, the things that get shared is when you start to speak with emotion. Okay. And that comes because you're very passionate about a subject or you're irate about something. And that even for the podcast.
Give us an example of a time that you got irate on camera and it caught fire.
Yeah, I remember one time I was wrapping up at the gym. It was later at night. It was probably like 8, 9 o'clock. So I remember it was dark outside and it was raining and there was lightning in the background. And I got back to my car and I think I was reading some texts. And this was about like 3 years ago when I was finally getting this business started. And I was just dealing with some like ex-friend drama. And they were just talking trash, like what are you doing? And why aren't you still like working in oil and gas? And like are you sure this is what you want to do? And it kind of set me off. I was like, dude, like these people that you've gone on vacation with, people that you've known for 10, 15 years, like they're going to try to naysay you because their own comfort level, because they see you climbing out of the box that, they want you to fit in the box with them. And you're over there building a ladder in the corner. Like, what are you climbing out of this box with us? Like, we want you to be here with us. And I was just kind of like, man, I need to tell my audience this. like, this is what I'm going through. And I was kind of just going off on this. It's like, dude, you guys had to expect that there's going to be people that try to naysay you and tell you, like, the basis of their own fear that it's scary, that you shouldn't be doing that, and like, I wouldn't do that if I was, I don't know. So I did that. I did it like on Instagram stories, and man, people were sharing it as like a video. They were like recording it and sharing it and tagging me in. And it's like, dude, that's when I realized, like, you got to learn how to speak with emotion. And that's even like, you can hear it in my voice when I'm talking about it on a podcast, because I realized that, being on hundreds of podcasts, that even the people that have the knowledge or the name, if they can't share the story and speak with emotion in their voice, then it's not going to get a lot of views. It's not going to get a lot of downloads. The guests that have been on my show that got the most downloads, not always the most famous people. It's the people that could tell a compelling story with emotion in their voice. The speakers, when we go to a stage, we see something on stage. You used to hold your events. The ones that could take you on that emotional roller coaster and feel the lows and feel the highs and feel the achievement and get you like motivated, and your hair on your arm starts to raise. Like, those are the ones you remember, the emotional speakers. So video's the same way.
Yeah. And it's you hit the nail on the head there. And I think that when you touch a nerve that everybody has raw inside of them, but they keep it covered, but you just touch it, then people, one way or the other, they're going to react and they'll feel something. And we actually have a metric, like we measure how long it takes from when somebody, like literally the photons come into the viewer's eyeballs. So that's register, right? And then it goes into their brain. They comprehend, they read the words on the title or something. And then from comprehension to feeling something, our job when we create, we curate our audiences, our clients' videos, and they might send us a 1-hour seminar, and we have to curate the edits in such a way so that we shorten that distance between the photon entering the eyeball to them having a gut check about something. And the shorter we can make that time delay, the more popular that video will be. And I think if you're going live, you just have to be very conscious about how can I bring that emotion up to the beginning, and without being overly dramatic or cheesy. Yeah. And you can do that in writing the titles and stuff like that. So totally on the money with that. Now, what's the connection right now between the content you put out and clients or coaching clients or customers coming into your business somehow? Can you give us a brief overview of that chain of events and how you've structured that?
Yeah. So I'm a business coach right now, 365 driven. Although it's an entrepreneurship community, we got thousands of members. I'm still a business coach. I own other businesses that cash flow very well, but my passion and the things I'm really focused on is being a business coach and working in entrepreneurship. Now, the thing is when you got customers or potential clients out there, they're looking for a business coach perhaps. Maybe somebody's told them that they should have a business coach or high performance coach. And so they start to scan social media and ask for referrals and all this kind of thing. So you really do get compared against people in your peers, even if you have completely different backgrounds, different expertise levels, different success levels. Like, they don't know this stuff because they're out there just trying to meet people and find out who's the right one for them. And the content is so important, especially if you've got a website. You always want to make sure your website has fresh content on it, because if they go to your website, put yourself in the perspective of a customer. If they go to your website and they look and the last thing you posted on there was 3 months ago, they're going to say, well, this person's just really not that active. Even if you may be completely busy and like doing some stuff behind the scenes that nobody even knows about, if you don't show that on the social media, because everybody goes to Google and they go to social media and Instagram and all these things, and they're going to look at, maybe, let's say they pick 5 different potential business coaches they want to work with. And you go to the one and it's got the guy's website that looks like his cousin built it, in 5th grade and like did it as a hobby. And it's got all these B-roll type, just generic stuff. And like, looks like it was done in the late 1990s. Like, he's out, like, right away, like, no, I'm not working with that person. You go to the other one and maybe don't have a lot of content. They're just kind of like, look like they're beginners. They don't have a lot of testimonials. They're not in the media. They're not doing much. Like, okay, they may be a good person, but maybe they're just early in on their journey. Maybe I'm not willing to take my bet and hire that person. But you start to look at the ones that are interviewing the names that you recognize. Like, oh man, he's had Ed Milet on the show. Like, I know that guy. Like, oh shit, that's his mentor. Like, you start to understand that proximity is power and it is a marketing play. And we all know that. I mean, everybody that's famous right now that you can think of, I guarantee that they understood proximity to power as well. They started to hang around with other people that were notable, to build their own credibility, and they had to still do the work. They still had to deliver the result. You can't just hang around people and think you're going to get the money, but make sure that you're always doing things that are relevant, timely. You're still present. When they go to the social media, they go, okay, I can see their lifestyle. Like, to me, Instagram is kind of like a picture show, a video show of my life, right? You see that I like to do lifting, and I like cars, and I like travel, and the things I enjoy that is there, right? So that's kind of like, okay, I'm on the same wavelength as this person. Like, that's what that's for, right? So you understand each platform has its own strengths and weaknesses and what you need to be showing on those things. So content, videos, very important for what I do, because, man, I'm out there looking at really just competitors. That's what I'm doing. It's just like, what are they doing? Can I do it better? Do I have to be the same? No, I don't think I have to be the same at all.
Got it. So it's really like for you cast a pretty wide net where you're looking for people who are already shopping for business coaches, and you want to show up, so the right person at the right time will come to you. So would you say that like everything is inbound? Is that right with your strategy?
Yes. Yeah. We don't do any outreach. I don't get in people's DMs and like hit them up, because I just think that's sleazy, dude. I think that if you're putting the message out there, I mean, I've got a podcast, very successful. It's 250 something episodes a few years in. And so the podcast has a lot of reach. Thousands and thousands of people listen to every episode. They share that kind of stuff. The videos, the book, all these different things are basically the big end of the funnel if you want to think about the business model. That builds the awareness. Maybe they see a video randomly on Instagram or something like that, and they go, hey, who's this guy? Like, what has he done? And I want them to go down the rabbit hole. I want them to go Google search me. I want them to go find out what I've done. I want them to see that I've sold companies for millions of dollars. I want them to go find all that stuff, because I did that for a reason. I built that. That was my life. That's history. It's archived. It's on the internet. It's there forever. And I'm fine with that. I think that anyone that you want to hire, you should go do the due diligence and go look them up and see what they've achieved. And you'll find, like before we kicked off this camera, that a lot of people have not been successful until they started coaching. They said, I just want to be a coach, because I want to help people. And I love that they want to help people, but are they really helping you if you've never achieved what they're trying to teach you?
Yeah. Like Mike Tyson, his famous quote, everybody's got a game plan until they get punched in the face. I think a lot of these coaches do well until they hit their first snag. And if they haven't solved that, that kind of problem to that magnitude multiple times, they're not going to give you the right advice, because they don't know. Or even if it is the right advice, they might not be that present leader. They might not have the presence of a leader who can guide you through a process. Like, for example, the pandemic. Unfortunately, I think the pandemic actually cultivated a lot of new kind of, I'd say, novice coaches, because they just they lost their job. Just like, what do I do? Oh, it looks like these coaches are making a lot of money. Maybe I should do that. And if you have some great airbrush filters on your phone, steal a few quotes from the Dalai Lama, then hey, you sound like a smart coach, right? But just do a little bit of research. You could scratch that veneer with your nail very easily and see that, okay, well, I don't know how much experience they actually have.
It goes for authors too, man. There's people that New York Times bestsellers, like that's the kind of the highest level. You could buy that, It's $150,000. You can definitely buy it, and it has nothing to do with sales, and it's purely subjective, because New York Times editors vote you on the list. It ain't based on your sales. And here's the thing. I learned all this after writing a book. It's like, oh wow, it kind of hurt my feelings that it was like that's what it was. Like, I was hoping it was legit, right? But the thing is, like, you'll read a good book. Sometimes you'll read a good book and I want to learn some more from this person. Like, what do they achieve, and who are they? And you start going down the Google rabbit hole and finding out, it's like, dude, that person just worked as a middle manager sitting in a cubicle, never owned a business, never achieved anything in his life, never was rich, but now he's like talking about success and wealth and prosperity. It's like, come on, man. Like, whose information is he really sharing? Because he didn't do that before his book came out, and somebody blew it up.
Yeah. I think the whole industry has, the OGs are pretty easy to recognize. And then there's a lot of people who it's hard to see who's for real and who's not. And I think that some people getting started, everybody needs to start somewhere. But when you overinflate that, use these kind of vague terms to describe, 7-figure launch in Japanese yen or something, who knows, right? Like, sometimes they'll kind of say things in a vague way that can be questionable. So yeah, it's important to do your research. And how do you, was there a time? I mean, I know it's kind of hard to measure because you put your stuff out everywhere and people find you. But do you remember the first time that someone decided to pay you money? They cut you a check and they said, it's because I saw your content.
Yeah, I've actually had I've had a few coaching clients that either found me through the podcast or they found me through Instagram, right?
And what was that lag time from when you committed to making all that content to when someone came in?
I would say
like primarily because of that.
I would say at least a year, going back to that year thing. I would say that they may find your latest and greatest piece of content. That's what you hope, but then they always want more. They want to go back and see what you've done before that. And if you don't have anything before that, then there's no substance. There's the lack of depth. So when they can go back and see like a year worth of content, they're like, okay, he's been doing this consistently over a year. Like they watch a few more videos. Like, okay, I really like this guy's message. Let me follow him. They may not make a commitment because there'll be times that I've had people that come to work with me and they've known me 10 years. I've actually had clients that come to me that used to be staff members of mine on my first company 20 years ago that I helped start businesses back when they started their businesses, and they're coming to me now to exit their companies. And so everything takes about a time, just consistency over time, right? And I always thought that was fascinating. I'll put in an offer for like a mastermind group. Like, I'm going to do a mastermind group. I need 6 to 8 people. And, here's the enrollment form. And then I had 2 people in my first mastermind group that were staff members of mine 20 years ago. I was like, well, that says a lot. That's pretty cool. Like I had no expectation of that, but there they are,
Wow. That's amazing. So I think what you said is so important about that lag time. You're putting out the content, and it must be like what you described earlier about setting up these systems and these communities running themselves. It takes very little of your time. Content does take time because it's you in front of the camera, right? So how do you in the beginning, how do you justify all that time you put toward content creation?
This goes back to marketing, okay? Because most people, here's a wrong way of thinking about marketing. This is going to be like a business 101 simplified. I talk about this in my book. A lot of times people think about marketing, and I've seen so many people make this mistake. They're busy. They market, and then they get busy, and then they turn off the marketing machine. Oh, we're busy. We're backlogged on customers. We got a waiting list. Like, let's just quit marketing. And it's like, do you ever see Coca-Cola stop marketing? Do you ever see Nike stop marketing? You don't think they're busy? You don't think that they're selling everything that they make? Like, do you see like these hot brands are always marketing, aren't they? Well, yeah. It's like, but we're busy. It's like marketing has nothing to do about being a lead gen. It's about being relevant and being present, because you want to stay top of mind present every time somebody logs into a computer or thumbs through a magazine or watches a TV and they see your brand on the screen. It just embeds one more little unit in their brain that company is still relevant. They're still at the top of the game, and they may not even need your product or service right now. But when they finally do, or someone asks them for a referral, hey, do you know a business coach? Hey, do you know a video expert? You want to be at the top of their list. And the only way you do that is through your marketing machine. So I don't care how busy you are, you better always be marketing. So that's my philosophy on marketing. So you can see why I always dedicate information and time to doing content, because I think that as a business owner, it becomes your duty, unless you've got a full-time marketing team, especially if you're solopreneur or working with a 4-person team like I do, you got to do the marketing until you have somebody else that can do it for you. And my face is still this company, so therefore I am committed to doing the time. Now, you can talk about, like we said, we can hack the videos and do like 10 into once, and I can change the t-shirt and change the color in the background, and we can knock out a bunch of videos, but that's smart. I mean, that's not a bad way to do it. That's your strategy, but you still have to devote the time to do that every single day.
Yeah. Hey, Tony, I want to respect your time here. We're almost out of time. I just have 2 last questions for you, and then we'll wrap this up. Number 1 is, could you share just a high-level view? Like, what is your content creation process from ideation to when it actually gets on social media?
Well, I do different pieces of content. So I like to think about philosophical things. I do these little deep thought things. So if you go watch on my Instagram, which is 365 Driven, I'll put quotes up, and those are like the copywriting headline practices that I do. And I used to do this on Facebook as well, where I would do this background post where you can only type a certain amount of words before the background disappears. That's the headline practice. So if you want to be good at grabbing people and having the hook, like the early part of your video or the first sentence of your post, you got to understand copywriting and hooks. And so those are the ways I practice, and the philosophical things I post on my Instagram. Those are like the hooks. Like, in the caption usually carries like the few paragraphs that kind of talk about what the hook was, but that's like to keep me sharp. So I do those every day. The video content is a little bit different now because, like, for example, we're on this podcast, but I've also got 2 cameras over here off to the right that are off the screen. And I'm literally video recording myself being recorded because, one, I'm in an emotional state, so I can answer with emotions. So therefore, it's going to be good content. It's not just like me firing up a camera and recording myself and trying to be all emotional. Like, we're having a conversation. I can speak with emotion. It's a lot different than just trying to do that and fake it, right? And so I'll take this video and I'll give it to my team, and they'll cut that up and make little reels and things like that out of it, because out of a 30, 40-minute conversation, you get a lot of little 1-minute, 2-minute clips that you can make into real content. Same with these podcasts, these videos that we use. You're going to clip them up and use them up for different things. And so I think about that as I can use these as like a dual purpose thing. And I didn't start doing this till about a year ago, when I started like, you know what? Why don't I just video myself being recorded and then I have extra content? Because it's not the same as like a Zoom. It's like this third person, like observer, like off to the side. Like, I'm not making eye contact with those cameras, right? It's a different perspective. So think about those kind of things. Whenever you're being interviewed or whenever you're doing something on video, just record yourself and you'll have extra content, just like a cameraman standing there.
Got it. That's super cool. And your team, how long did they take to turn that around once they get all that and then put it on social media? Are you approving all the stuff that they edit, or do you just leave it in their hands?
Not all the time. I mean, it's really as simple as taking that and putting it into a Dropbox, and then they just do what they want with it. I just make sure that they put the captions on it and the captions are correct. And, sometimes what they'll do is they'll take the video and they'll do the automatic transcribe, and they'll see the text. And then what they'll do is they'll just review the text and they go, okay, this looks actually like a pretty good piece. And they'll go find that piece of the video, right? They do it backwards. Like, I don't have time to do that kind of stuff, but people, that's what you pay them to do. So those are just little tricks.
Yeah, that's a role that we invented inside of our company. Like, we don't let the video editors choose what part of the videos they get for our clients. They transcribe the whole thing, and we have content curators. They read everything. They make the quote cards, the headlines. They decide what title should come on the screen, what clips are the short form, the medium form, the long form. And then they grab all that, send it to the video editors. The video editors make it look amazing, and then they check to make sure it gets done. Then we pass it to our clients. So that middle role, the person who reads everything, that's super important, because editors are good at editing. They're not necessarily good at curating.
Yeah, because they're looking for visuals. They're looking at visuals only. You look good in this shot, right? But even my podcast editor, that's what she does. She will transcribe. I'll send her the Zoom video and the recording, and she'll transcribe it and she'll read it and she'll figure out, okay, this is what the title is for this show. And she'll find the part of the video and she'll make the little reel clip from just that one segment, but without having to like watch the whole video to figure out where that is.
All right, here's my final question is, you've built a bit of a team around yourself for the content. And I would imagine toward the beginning, you were just doing everything yourself. At what stage do you think it's appropriate for a business owner to offload all the editing and publishing instead of doing it themselves?
That question is going to be answered differently by everybody. And the reason is because, one, if you have time to do it and you enjoy doing it. I know you and I both enjoy doing the creative side, so we don't always hand off everything. And also, if I'm going to do it myself, I want to make sure I do it really simple. So I actually tell myself, if I'm going to edit stuff myself, it has to be on my phone. Like, if it's not as easy to do on my phone, then I don't want to deal with it, right? I can do all the video editing and things like that with these big software packages. I can do all that. But if I'm going to do it, it needs to be able to do it with my phone. So I just use these little simple apps to do that, right? Make it easy on myself. And I think that if you don't enjoy it, then start to get a VA, find somebody to just pay that off. Like, if you can create the content, that's one thing. Putting in a Dropbox and letting them edit it and putting the finished products back in the Dropbox so you can share them, it's easy. It's an easy way to do it. It's an exchange. So if you enjoy it, make time to do that kind of stuff. Like, because I think that if you're a creator, if you're a creative person, then we still get fulfilled. It checks the box. I still like to do graphic design. I still like to do the aesthetics. I've designed all my logos. I've done all kinds of stuff. I still build my websites because I actually enjoy that, as weird as that sounds. And most people are like, well, you're making like $1,000 an hour being a coach. Like, why would you just pay somebody to do that? Like, because I enjoy it. And it's me. It's like if you go to my website, that's me. That's my personality. Like I can't relay this information to somebody. I enjoy doing it.
It's just like asking Steven Spielberg to, outsource his
use a ghostwriter or use a ghostwriter.
Yeah. It's just that's his zone of genius, and that's what he loves doing. And that's absolutely the same. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, Tony, I want to wrap this up, and I want to appreciate you for coming on the show. If someone wants to learn from you, or let's say they want to get your book or find out about your business mentoring or business coaching program, what's the best way for people to do that?
Keep it simple. Everything's on my website, and that's 365driven.com.
Okay, perfect. Guys, make sure you check out 365driven.com. It'll be down below in the show notes as well as the description if you're watching this on YouTube. Tony, thank you so much. Is there any last words of wisdom you'd like to give to a business owner who wants to blow up their social media game with video? Is there any last things you'd say to them?
Yeah, I would say that it is a scary thing for a lot of people. We just don't understand the potential impact. We don't understand how people are going to receive the information or the videos or the content we create, but you have to do it. And the more that you procrastinate or wait or just think like it's not the right time to start, you're just going to get buried behind. And the problem is that 10 years from now, let's say like your business is okay. 10 years from now, if you decide to do it 10 years from now and start, you're going to be 10 years behind. And it's going to be a lot more people doing it because they figured out the importance of it by then. So you're going to have this ocean of noise. You may think that it's an ocean of noise right now, but I can tell you this is still the infancy of video creation and influencer strategy. And 10 years from now, everybody's going to know it. And the generations that grew up watching it are all going to be involved in it. So it's going to be very hard for you to stand out and build a name for yourself when everybody's doing it. So get ahead of that right now. Be willing to suck and understand that everybody that starts at something new they should suck. I mean, you should suck. And you can only improve from there. But if you are finding that you're not improving at a good rate, man, join a Toastmasters, hire a public speaking coach, a video coach, hire people that can accelerate your results through repetition and gaining awareness of where you can improve. Like if it's your communication, they're going to give you better advice. They're going to tell you, hey, don't do this. Don't say all the time. And, quit looking around and making yourself look weird on camera. Like they're going to give you the awareness that you need to improve. And that's when you're going to get the results. So do that.
Thank you so much for that. That's perfect. I just want to give a thumbs up to every single point you made there. I appreciate it. Tony, I appreciate you being on the show. Absolutely take time to check him out. Follow him on Instagram, on YouTube, find him on Facebook. I'll tell you what, the content that brought me to the point of asking him to be on my show, it was a no-brainer. When I saw a few of his, I was like, I've got to have him on my show. So thank you for being here. And I just want to say to the audience, there is something that is so powerful about just sharing your truth, not trying to be something that you're not. And that's what attracted me to you, Tony, is you just seem natural, relaxed, confident. And that's what I think there needs to be a lot more of that in this world and less of the braggadocious type of content that we're seeing everywhere. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you. And I will see you guys in the next episode.